So let's say, hypothetically speaking, I start filling in this live paint group. And so let's review really quickly how I would fill in the colors in this live paint group. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the live paint bucket, and the live paint bucket is underneath the shape builder. So there's the bucket. I'm going to tear this away. Grab the bucket. Okay. And when I hover over one of these areas, you can see that it's active, and it will allow me to fill it with a color. In this case, I'm going to use the image itself to select its value. So just like the cartoon character, you guys sampled the color of the cartoon and then added the color, remember? I think, well, some of you did it. I don't think everybody has, but some of you have done that. So it's a live paint group. I'm going to hold the Alt key down, and that turns on the eyedropper. So I'm going to sample this gray. It glitches the first time. So there's the gray, and I'm going to drop it in this area. I didn't see the fill actually occur. Why is that? I'm still in outline mode, very observant. So you'll notice that my tab says, Marco, you're in outline mode. So you're not going to see any of the fills. I need to go back to view and go back to preview. Now I can see the fill. Okay, so remember, Command Y will toggle this back and forth as well. All right, so I'm going to sample this color, drop, sample this color, drop, sample this color, drop, sample this color, drop, drop. So the filling of the values actually can be relatively quick depending on how complex you've made your line work. Okay, so how complex you've made your line work. And sometimes what I do is as I'm filling this, I might turn off my reference image to see the progress. Okay, so it's going okay. Now let's say for whatever reason, you know what? I like the way that this is turning out, but I realize now that along the nose, I needed more detail. Like it's too much of a sort of a overall blobby shape. I wish I would have added more detail in the nose. And the nose is really important in a portrait. We discussed that the nose has a lot of character in it. So maybe I want to have more detail in this area. So how do I've already started my live paint group. I've already started to fill this. Oh my gosh, I need more lines. How do I do that? So this is what I would do if I wanted to add more lines to my document. First of all, I would make a new layer and call it New Lines. Maybe I'll lock any of the lines that, or layers that I'm actively working on. So I'm going to lock them so I don't accidentally select it. And secondly, I am going to sort of decide where am I going to work. Now, because this has a live paint fill, I can't see the reference image below it, so I'm going to turn this off temporarily. So I can see here that there are some values that I missed along the bridge of his nose. So I'm going to try to capture those. So I'm going to select the new line layer, and I'm going to draw the new lines, not in red, but in a different color. I'm going to draw them in blue. Draw them in blue. And so then I'll select the pencil tool, and I'm going to be very mindful of some of this new line work that I'm going to work on. Now, one of the things that I like to advise students is, if you're struggling seeing the values, so the value, when we talk about value, we're talking about how light or dark an object is. And that doesn't matter if it's black and white or if it's a red apple or an orange. It has different levels of lightness and darkness of orange on an orange, if it's volumetric. Same thing with an apple. In this case, it's a grayscale image. But along the nose, there are different values. Let's say I struggle seeing the values. One of the things I suggest that you do is you squint your eyes at the image. And what happens is that sometimes you can see the values more accurately. So that's an old painting strategy that I learned from a professor of mine. So look, I'm just going to try to extract these little highlights. I kind of see these little highlights along the bridge of the nose. So I'm going to try to get some more accuracy in here. Okay. So these are my new lines. They look totally abstract right now, but in context, they might work out and provide some more accuracy in this space. So these are new lines. Here's the original lines. New lines over the original lines. So you can see it is going to give me a little bit more information along the bridge of his nose. But how do I get these new lines to become part of my live paint group? How do I get them to become part of my live paint group? My live paint layer should be named LP, by the way. So there's two ways that I can do this. I can select the lines. So I'm going to shift click them all, and I can drag them into the live paint group. I'm going to drag them into the live paint group. So when I do that, they're automatically now part of the live paint group. So I dragged and dropped them. Did you guys see that? Let me see that again. One more time. So I drew new lines. They're on a separate layer. I'm going to drag them into the live paint group. So once I do that, they become part of that live paint group. See, they're active now. They're active now. Another way that I can add new lines to a live paint group is once again to select them and shift click and select the live paint group. So I'm going to select both of those. Zoom out so you can see that. So I have the live paint group selected. I have the new line selected. If I go to my object menu, go back to live paint, you'll notice that there's an option that says merge. All right, so if I select that, merge, it will combine the new lines within the live paint group. Now, one of the problems that I have in this example is a topic that I wanted to cover as well. So I've already filled this area with gray, but I defined new little nuanced pieces along the bridge of the nose. So I want to add different colors here, but I already added a color. How can I apply the new value if I already have a value in that spot? Any suggestions? Oh, yeah, I'm going to delete the color. How would I delete the color? How would I delete the color? What do you think? If I go to the live paint bucket, look what the default has on it. What does that mean? Transparent, right? So I know that I want to clean up this stuff I had here. So I'm just going to click on it and it's going to get rid of the color that I had there. So now I can go, once I remove all of these pre-existing grays, I can go back to Alt, sample the new color, and fill it in those spots. So one way is to just use no color with my paint bucket. Another way that I could possibly do this is to work in outline mode. So if I'm in outline mode, I can actually sample this stuff and fill it. Let me go out here so you can see this. I'm going to fill here, I'm going to fill here. Hopefully I'm selecting the right value. So it's an outline mode, but once I hit Command Y, you'll notice that it shows me that I have filled in those areas. So you can actually add colors while you're not seeing it dropped on the object. So once again, I was painting through outline mode. So that's another way where I could achieve that. Any concerns or questions? No? All right, let me go back to the agenda. All right, add correct color. We did that. So we added a transparent fill. We added the correct color. And then there's a feature called expanding and then ungrouping. So I want to show you what expanding does. So I have a file that's a little bit more resolved. So this one's more resolved. You can see here that it's finished.